Here's to whiskey kisses with the peachy taste of sin.
Greetings, whiskey folk, and welcome back once again to the official Strath studio. I'm Adam Bradshaw, and this is Drinking Out Loud on the Dram Association YouTube channel. Now, here at the Dram Association, we try and seek out some of the most interesting and some of the best whiskies available to us here in British Columbia for our members. Through the Strath liquor store, we managed to get some pretty cool things, and we've had some really interesting releases through the years. But it's always really especially interesting when we get something extra special that only we get in the entire province. You know, it's nice to share, and obviously we love having our partners with the SNWS. We love being involved with Legacy over in Vancouver for the SNWS. We love being involved now with the Co-op across the Lower Mainland for our Blackadder releases. But sometimes it's just that little bit extra special to have something where we can say, guys, only we got this. And it's just kind of cool. And, you know, sometimes we get that with, we sometimes get some very limited release stuff, especially through Red Rams. Working with Stacey at Red Rams has been an absolute delight. And especially some of the more rare and unique releases from Douglas Lang we've been getting, and we get the exclusive of. Or, for example, we also get the Morrison Mackay Glen Ord, which we had a few months ago right here on Drinking Out Loud as part of our Drams for Fams charity drive, where we raised about $2,000, I think, for charity. So, you know, we do have exclusives every now and again, and I really enjoy getting those. And we have two particularly special exclusives that I'm going to be showcasing today. One of them you may or may not know that we have already, depends whether you're a premium member, because this first one has been available to premium members for probably about 3 weeks now. And in that 3 weeks, we've already gone through over a quarter of our stock, I believe. And it's now available for everyone. We are making it available as a release for everyone to be able to purchase. The same price, the same special price that we extended to our premium members is going to be available, but only for a few days. And then it's going back up to its regular price. And this is particularly special to me because it's the start of a beautiful new relationship. So a lot of people ask how places like the Strath or places like Legacy or any of the bigger names in whiskey in British Columbia, how we get some of our special releases, how we manage to do that. Well, sometimes it's because we're quick on the button. Sometimes it's because, and most of the time, it's because we have relationships with importers, and we work with them to help showcase their products in things like these videos and our tastings. We work with them at festivals, and, you know, we have a very good working relationship with a lot of the companies that bring whiskey to British Columbia. And there is a company that I've just started working with, and a gentleman that I've just started working with called Spencer, and he works at a company called Onyx. And Onyx are now responsible for bringing two of my favorite distilleries into the province. So it's in my best interest, personally, to try and get on Spencer's good side, because I absolutely love Glen Scotia, and I also really like Loch Lomond. Not as much as I like Glen Scotia, but I do like them both quite a lot. So Spencer at Onyx, we managed to contact each other back in, I think, January, before all of this outbreak happened, and we managed to work out a way that we could work together nicely. And he offered to bring in a whiskey that I had never had before, but had always heard amazing feedback about. He offered to bring that in not only as an exclusive for us here at the Strath, but at a really, really good price, on the idea that really he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to promote it. He doesn't have to take it around to festivals. He doesn't have to visit a bunch of stores to try and, you know, he doesn't have to spend money on hotel rooms, traveling around the province, traveling different stores to pick it up. He just brought in 10 cases, and they're all for us. So we brought in 60 bottles of this whiskey because I believe in it. I really do. And then the outbreak happened, and I honestly forgot about it for a little while. And then they arrived. And I got a little worried because I was like, okay, well, I'm fairly certain I'll be able to sell them. Under normal circumstances, I was certain that I'd be able to go through all 60 of these, even if it wasn't as good as I expected to be, even if it was just a good, okay whiskey, on name alone and on premise alone that this is a cask strength Glen Scotia, at the price it's coming in at, I didn't think I'd have much trouble selling them through. And then they arrived, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, and everything's a little topsy-turvy right now, and I was like, ooh, dear. But obviously I want to honour my word. I wanted to bring in all 10 cases and do the right thing for Onyx, and we're at the beginning of this hopefully beautiful relationship with Onyx. So I brought them all in, of course I did. What else is it going to do? And the day they arrived, I purchased my own personal bottle, and as I remember pouring it into the glass at home going, oh God, I hope this is good. And Kristen, my girlfriend, was very confused as to why I was talking to my whiskey as I was pouring it, but it was good. It was so good that I'm actually already on my second bottle. And so far, only a bunch of premium members of the Dram Association have managed to try this, and I've already got some some very positive feedback from them. And it's not like I've reached out and asked for people's opinions. They've reached out to me and told me how good they think it is. We've got a couple of people who have already bought their own second bottle as well, so it's not just me. So I'm really excited to be sharing this whiskey now with not just our premium members, but with pretty much anyone in BC that wants to pick up a bottle at strathliquor.com. I should stop talking and start drinking. Isn't she beautiful? And I have to admit, part of the reason I went all in on this as well was the fact that it's a cask strength Glen Scotia, and that's awesome, is the fact that we're in Victoria, and it's called the Victoriana. It's just meant to be. Some things in life are just meant to be, and this feels like one of them. So before I tell you more about Glen Scotia and my opinions of the distillery and this whiskey, let's read the box, shall we? There's always more wonderful, interesting things to learn when you read the box. So, cask strength, bottled from cask. Glen Scotia established 1832, non-chill filtered Victoriana single malt Scotch whiskey, finished in the finest deep charred oak casks, and then signed by J. Peterson, their malt master. Classic Campbellton malt. And then it's got this beautiful old school, like Victorian era stamp style thing on it, which I absolutely adore. And then at the bottom, cask strength, volume 54.2%, so a nice hefty strength on this one. On the back, Campbellton is a small town on the Kintyre Peninsula on the west coast of Scotland, affectionately known as the Wee Toon. Campbellton whiskies are intriguing, appealing to those consumers looking for something a little off the beaten track. That's true. Our maltmaster, John Peterson, hand-selects casks from our reserve cellar, each chosen for their rare characteristics and exceptional maturity. Finished in the finest deep charred oak, the result is an exceptionally smooth single malt Scotch whisky, where the aroma and flavours work in harmony. Bottled the traditional way, straight from the cask without chill filtration, its subtle wood and vanilla flavour is enhanced by a full-body fruity aroma and mildly smoky aftertaste. I love this whiskey so much. I'm really happy to be cracking open what is now going to be the third bottle I've cracked open in as many weeks. And it's just, I'm a graphic designer, right? So I do enjoy a well-designed bottle and box and whatnot. The box is beautiful, but this bottle, I mean, the sticker, the label's fine, it's great, it works well with the box and everything, but the bottle itself has such heft to it. Like, there's like an inch thick punt at the bottom here. It's absolutely magnificent. It's such a heavy, beastie, old school bottle, and it's got this like bluey green color to the actual glass. I love it. I think it feels special, and I like that. I like it when a whiskey feels special before you even open it. I do. So let's open another one. Alrighty. In case you're worried about my health, I have been sharing my Victoriana with friends. As a great man once said, whiskey's not whiskey until it's shared. Oh yeah. Okay. Glen Scotia Victoriana, available in BC exclusively at the Strath. You can purchase it right now at strathliquor.com. And before I get into the tasting notes, I should mention one of the most wonderful things about the fact that it's available exclusively now in BC at strathliquor.com is the price. Because it's very rare that I get to say this, but you might know that we're friendly with a few stores over in Calgary, and and Edmonton as well. And it's rare that I get to say this. This whiskey's about $40 cheaper at the Strath than it is in Alberta. It's very rare I get to say that. And, you know, a lot of it is pretty much entirely to do with our quite high taxes here in BC. It's quite restrictive to bring in whiskies at a good price here. Luckily enough, I get to work with some fantastic importers who manage to make it less painful for us here in BC. But yeah, it's not often I get to say something's $40 cheaper. The nose is just this beautiful, soft cream. It's softly smoked. Nice oak and cloves. A little orange peel. It's quite sweet as well. It's got this honey, like a burnt honey kind of thing going on. It's about as all over the map and crazy as Glen Scotia often is in its single cask releases, but more coherent and together. Like we just had Glen Scotia in the SNWS, which told tales of eviscerated tractors and what was it? Playing a sweaty squash game with lemon or something. I don't know. Glen Scotia is known to be a little bit mad, but part of the reason their single casks are so mad is because they actually make 3 different types of whiskey. They make a unpeated, a lightly peated, and a heavily peated, and they make them as weird and wacky as they can, and then their master whiskey makers blend them together for their official bottlings to make them normal. They're making beauty out of chaos, if you like. Yeah, I love this nose. There's a black currant thing going on in the background as well. Just a deeply satisfying, full-flavored whiskey. Oh. Warming. Oh, that is warming. And actually, warming in a spice way, not warming in a hot way. I don't want to get any hotter right now. It's like 26 degrees out at like 6 o'clock in the evening in September. I don't know what's going on with the weather right now. Woke up yesterday morning and it smelt like an Ardmore everywhere. It was just smoke wafting up from the States. It was all very apocalyptic. Brown bread. That's a very English way of saying it. Whole wheat bread. There we go. Whole wheat bread with like a really smoky ham. It's like a smoked ham and cheese sandwich with ice cream on the side. It's really, burnt honey is there on the palate as well. Quite oily. Not in the Climbish waxy way, but more in a slightly like a delicious engine oil. Actually, more than any other whiskey I can think of, apart from maybe Lafroig, I feel like Glen Scotia are the king of the asterisk. For those who aren't aware of my whiskey asterisk thing, it's when you say a tasting note of a whiskey that normally isn't something that you'd eat. So it's like, yeah, it tastes like engine oil, asterisk, but in a good way. Glen Glen Scotia. So Glen Scotia was built, as the bottle I think said, 1832. Yeah, established 1832. And it's one of two old school distilleries from Campbellton that actually survived the great scourge, I guess, of distillery closures. Campbellton, in that tiny little town of Campbellton on the Kintyre Peninsula, had it all back in the day. It had over 30 distilleries. It was apparently the richest town per capita in the entire British Empire, which is mad. They got a bit big for their own boots, I think. They rested on their laurels. The quality of their whiskey kind of went down. And with the advent of the train line going up to Speyside, they kind of lost their advantage. Like, they were a really good port. It was a really well-situated port for getting the whiskey across to America or down to London, or getting the raw ingredients across from the north, or even taking things to and from Ireland. A really well-situated little town. But yeah, they everything but two distilleries closed down. There's now three. One of them has reopened again, thanks to a little intervention from Springbank. But yeah, Springbank and Glen Scotia, the only two that really managed to survive from over 30. It's a real battle royale of distilleries, really. Who there can be only one. Who will be the last? I don't think there's ever going to be only one. Hopefully, maybe in 10,000 years when the sun's about to implode or something, but I actually don't know when the sun's going to implode. I haven't put it in my calendar. Sorry for anyone who does know, and I'm wildly off with 10,000 years. But I can't see Campbellton declining again. I can only see it growing. I've got to say, it might stay only 3 for a long time, but I think it's going to be going to 4 before it goes down to 2. If it ever goes down to 2. Anyway, yeah, Glen Scotia's had a really interesting history. It had a pretty fantastic first 100 years. It was doing pretty well, but then in 1924, a guy called Duncan McCallum bought the distillery. Unfortunately, due to financial troubles, he had to close it down for a few years. When he finally reopened it in 1930, however, he had even worse financial troubles after he lost almost all of his money, if not all of it, to a scam artist. He then took it upon himself to drown himself in the nearby Campbellton Loch. Apparently his ghost can be seen at the distillery, if you're into that kind of thing. So yeah, a little bit of a downturn there. It's since, been bought out by several different companies. For a while, it was actually owned by Hiram Walker, the great Canadian distilling giant based over in Ontario there. It's had a couple of closures as well. 1984 and 1994 both closed both years for a few years there, a couple of years each, I think. But thankfully, it is now under the ownership of the Loch Lomond Group and has been since 1999, where it's been doing really quite well. They've been a little bit more coherent and consistent with their releases. They've got a really good core range of age statements, and also done something which I think pretty much every distillery should do, and very little do, having an official cask strength bottling. And also, not just an official cask strength bottling, but a cask strength bottling with a story and a reason and a purpose for being. This is a Victorian style whiskey. That's why it's called a Victoriana. It's a throwback whiskey. It's, it's smooth, yes, but it's a little bit rough and ready. It's a little bit cheeky. It's a little bit, it's a little bit, can I have some more, please? It's, very, what's the word? Dickensian. It's a very playful, classic style of whiskey, and I really like what they've done with this as a project, as an ongoing release. And I also find myself going through it at an alarming rate. It's just frankly delicious. If you're a fan of cask strength whiskey and you want something that's a little bit more interesting and rustic than many of the official single malt cask strengths that you'll get, this is in the same family, I guess, as Glenfarclas 105 and Abelauer Abunard and maybe the Glenlivet Nadura series. all really beautifully well-crafted, well-rounded sort of blended single malts that are presented at cask strength. Like batch to batch, there's a little variation, but they're all very well thought of, highly regarded, but kind of tame in a sense. I mean, they're cask strength, and they're great whiskies. Don't get me wrong, but they always feel a little bit more restrained than a lot of the single cask offerings. This doesn't have that restraint. This is coherent, and it makes sense, and it's very well structured, but it's still a wild animal inside it as well. Like Glen Scotia haven't made. Yes, it's cask strength, but it purrs like a kitten. No, this is a bit of a tiger of a whiskey. All right. Yeah, big fan of this, as you know. It is now officially available for anyone to purchase. You don't have to be a premium member as of right now, and the price is incredible. It's normally going to be $141.65, and it'll revert back to that price again in a matter of days after this video is aired, but it is on special right now for $119.91, making this an absolute steal of a deal, and only available at the Strath here in British Columbia. I'm pretty impressed with this one. I should mention that a long time ago, like 6-ish years ago, they did have an old batch version of Victoriana available in BC, and there might be 1 or 2 liquor stores hidden in the middle of nowhere who have a couple of dusty old boxes of that lying around. I can tell you that this is a different whiskey. It's a different batch. It's going to taste a lot different. But I can also tell you that this is substantially less expensive than that would have been. I actually looked up what the old wholesale price was. You can buy this for less than the old wholesale price. So unless the old Dusties are being sold off for less than they paid for them, you're not going to be able to find it cheaper than the Strath. And I can practically guarantee you can't find it anywhere else in British Columbia. Of this exact edition, I can guarantee. We are the only place in BC that picked this one up because it was brought in especially for us. So again, my huge thanks to Spencer at Onyx if you're watching this, /Avar. I look forward to bringing in some more Glen Scotias and Loch Lomonds. I've still got my eye on that Loch Lomond grain. Hopefully we can bring that in next time. But for now, it's time for our second new release. And I've been teasing this a little bit on social media that we've got something. I mean, this is very special, and I love this whiskey, and it's one that I'm going to drink a lot of. This next one is very special in a very different way, in a little bit more of exclusive kind of a way. Not in the fact that we have the exclusive, but it's more of an exclusive whiskey, if you catch my drift. Because this next one is, well, I might do a bit of a box reveal, actually. I won't tell you exactly what it is quite yet. We'll do an unboxing. I'll do my best YouTube unboxing impression. So what do we have here? It's a white box. It's got a sticker on it. The sticker's upside down, and I'm not going to show you because it's much more interesting if I just... Ooh. We've got Ben Romack 40. Yes, we do. This is cool. Only 3 bottles of this whiskey were brought into British Columbia. We have all of them. So my heartfelt thanks to James at Authentic, who helped us organize bringing this one in. We've worked with James for quite a while now. We worked with Authentic, obviously, for a very long time. Authentic are a fantastic company. They bring in incredible whiskies, including the Glenallachys and the Lumreek as well, which is associated with Glenallachie. And Wolfburn, love Wolfburn. I should do more Wolfburns in tastings. We'll do a Wolfburn soon, actually. What else have we got? They are also the Compass Box guys. So some of my favorite whiskies of the last few years, like the Hedonism, the Muse, have come to us via James as well. The Myths and Legends series that we had in our videos a few months ago were brought in by James, and we were lucky enough to be chosen as one of the stores to bring the Myths and Legends to as well. And yeah, I was very, very excited when he offered that we could have the only 3 bottles of this whiskey coming to BC. And as far as I know, I think only like half a dozen actually came to the entire country. I think it was 3 to us and maybe 3 to Alberta somewhere. Not entirely sure on that, but either way, this is definitely an exclusive to the Strath in British Columbia. And that is very exciting because it's 40 years old. And you know what's more exciting? Is I get to open it right now and try some. Yeah, we're doing it. We're going to open a 40-year-old whiskey on Drinking Out Loud, guys. Ooh, it's magnets. Isn't that smart? All right, I'm going to read the inside of the box here. Benromach, 40 years old. At Benromach, we handcraft our single malt Scotch whiskey the time-honoured way and make it slowly, by sight, by sound, by touch, as it was made many, many years ago. Our small team of... the box smells like wood. It is wood. That makes sense. Our small team of distillers rely entirely on their senses and experience to craft Benromach using traditional methods at every stage. Benromach, 40 years old, is the result of 4 decades of careful maturation in both American hogsheads and sherry casks. The marriage of these casks has combined to create a single malt of exceptional depth, complexity, and balance. Limited to only 700 bottles worldwide, Benromach, 40 years old, has a golden amber hue with sweet sherry, red apple, and butterscotch aromas, leading to mellow spices and a hint of creamy white chocolate. Aromatic pear and ripe banana provide a sweet backdrop to a spicy ginger note. Smooth on the palate, cracked black pepper is initially followed by aged leather. Seville orange and soft oak tannins, mingling with subtle licorice before a long, dry, spicy finish. And then signed by Keith Cruikshank, the distillery manager. Let's free it from its box. It's got a nice sliding little thing here. Ooh, she's heavy. That is very heavy. I like the magnets, especially if you might have seen the studio samples video that I put up about a week ago now. I like the magnets because, as you might have seen with the Bunnahabhain 25 box, sometimes the little clasps can break, snap right off, and that's just upsetting. The magnets, you can't snap a magnet off very easily. Ah, beautiful. Again, hefty bottle. I mean, you'd expect it for a 40-year-old, let's face it. Oh, it's got a lot of heft. It feels sturdy. This, when I'm finished with it, might well be my new infinity bottle. This is a beautiful, beautiful bottle. All right. 43% ABV. Nice. A smooth space cider with hints of pepper, Seville orange, subtle licorice flavors, and a spicy, long-lasting finish. All right. It's actually slightly terrifying breaking the seal on this 40-year-old whiskey. Okay, here we go. Like a band-aid, just pull it, rip it off. Nice quality foil. Wow, it's like a coin. That is the heftiest foil cap I've ever come across. All right, here we go. Beautiful, beautiful metal weighted lid there. So I'm just going to let that breathe for a second and tell you a little bit about this distillery before I can smell it, before I get into it. So, as you might have seen on the little badge here, 1898, which is a very good year for whiskey in a sense. In another sense, it's a very bad year, and we'll get into that in a second. But many of my favourite distilleries actually opened in 1898, including Ardmore, which is kind of cool. Another one that started in 1898, again, harkening back to the Studio Sample Sessions video I just put up, Cappadonic. And Cappadonic famously closed after only 4 years of being open. Opened in 1898, closed in 1902. At the time, of course, it was called Glengrant 2. This one had a somewhat worse, somewhat worse time of it. So it proudly does say 1898 on the bottle, and I think it literally just says 1898. And That's slightly cheeky because they didn't actually start making whiskey until the year 1900, but 1898 certainly looks better. But that's the year it was built, so it took them a couple of years to actually finish building and get the stills running. It did unfortunately close by the end of the year in 1900, so it was actually distilling whiskey for less than a year before it closed down. And that's because there was a huge whiskey crash at the beginning of the 20th century. Patterson's had a huge hand to play in that. Look at the Patterson's whiskey crash on the internets, and you can read essays about it. It was quite sad, but yeah, it did manage to reopen. It reopened in 1907 with a brand new name for us, apparently, and then it closed again in 1910. So 1910, 12 years after it was constructed, 10 years after it was actually built. It had only been open for about 3.5 of them. Yeah. It wouldn't reopen again until after World War One. I believe by that point it reverted back to its original name of Ben Romack. And it then closed again in 1931, which is pretty bad too. It then reopened again, however, in 1936. It's a tale of ups and downs in this. So in 1936, it did reopen again, and then it closed again. It had a pretty good run this time, actually, in 1983. And in 1983, not only did it close, but it had a bit of a bigger close, if you will, than any of the other times. Because by that point, it was owned by a company called DCL. The Distillers Company Limited, which is now goes by the name Diageo. That's the precursor to Diageo. And as you know, they own a metric crap ton of distilleries. So when they closed Ben Romack down, they took a lot of the equipment out of it, including the stills. So they just tore the whole place apart and used everything as replacement equipment for some of the distilleries that needed it, or kept it for spares, or there wasn't really anything left after DCL had done with it. In 1993, it was finally purchased again by its current owners, Gordon MacPhail. And Gordon MacPhail, they are legends, I guess, in Scotch whisky. They are a very interesting company. They are known predominantly as an independent bottler these days, but they started off as a grocery store, as many blending houses did. You think like Johnny Walker started off as a grocery store. Many of them did, but this grocery store ended up not becoming a blending house per se, although I'm sure Gordon MacPhail do some blending, but becoming an independent bottler. So they started in 1895 as a grocery store, started by James Gordon and John MacPhail, and they happened to be in the heart of Speyside distilling country in the town of Elgin. By 1915, so about 20 years after they started, they hired a guy called John Urquhart, or rather, I think he probably worked with them before then, but I think he was made a partner, in 1915. And he was in charge of their whiskey program, as all good grocery stores in the region would have done back in the day. They had a substantial whiskey program, but he took it to the next level. He did something that not a lot of other people, or maybe no one else in the area, was really doing. He was actually buying new make spirit fresh from the distillery, maturing it himself in casks that he had procured in other ways, getting them to fill his casks and then maturing it in his own warehousing at the store. So he went one step further than most. And as such, Gordon MacPhail to this day have very, very good, long-standing relationships with a lot of distilleries. In fact, they bottle under license in a sense. So unlike many independent bottlers where sometimes they have to hide the name completely, or they just put the name in small text or something somewhere, they're actually allowed to use a lot of distilleries' logos and even branding sometimes. So like you'll see Gordon MacPhail Linkwoods, for example. I think we have the Linkwood in store still, where they actually has like a big Linkwood logo on it. It's really cool. So they are one step above many independent bottlers in terms of their relationships with a lot of distilleries. They also have one of the best collections of old and rare whiskies in the world, including stuff like this, I guess, but also things like things like Port Ellen, things like Brora, ridiculously old Glenmorangies, and just insane whiskies in their vaults. because they've been doing it for a very, very long time. They've been maturing their own whiskey, so they can choose when they bottle it as well. And very interestingly, they're still, and I love this about them, they're still a grocery store. You can go there and buy, $50,000 whiskeys, but you could also go there and buy some salami. They're less of a regular grocery store these days. You probably wouldn't go there for a lottery ticket and a Red Bull, but you can go there and get some fantastic cured meats and cheeses from their deli, and jams and things like that. It's pretty cool that they're still doing that. John Urquhart always wanted to have his own distillery, and they never made that happen during his lifetime. But the good news is the current owners of Gordon MacPhail are actually descendants of John Urquhart. So in a sense, he kind of managed that dream through his kids and grandkids and great grandkids, which is quite nice. So here we are. This is the culmination of both Gordon MacPhail, but more so of John Urquhart's lifelong dream. A 40-year-old Benromach from a distillery that they now own, that their company now owns. This is special. This is so special that I'm pulling out a special glass for this. A crystal cut Glencairn from the 2020 Victoria Whisky Festival. It's pretty cool. Actually, on the Victoria Whisky Festival, if you haven't seen the news yet, the festival organisers are determined to make the festival go ahead in some shape. So it's going to happen in January. It's not just being delayed for a year. They're doing something, and it's for two reasons. First of all, because a lot of whiskey companies depend on things like the festival in order to promote and sell their products, and a lot of the smaller companies need our help right now. Obviously, a lot of the big companies are doing perfectly fine, but a lot of the smaller, more interesting companies do need our help, and they honestly they need it. But at the same time, it's a charity festival, and if we can make even a couple of $1,000s for the charity, it's better than not making any money at all. So they're doing everything that they need to do in terms of COVID-19 protocols. Every room is going to be very, very sparsely populated. They're using an entire ballroom and only having like 32 people in there. They've got their own entrances and exits. They've got their own washrooms. Everything's doing perfectly safely. So we can look forward to a very different but still a very important Victoria Whisky Festival coming up in January. So yeah, Slanjavar to the organisers for making that happen, and I'm going to pour myself a 40-year-old Benromach. Oh, composure. Okay. This is very heavy. It's almost a little heavy for one hand, to be honest. There we go. There's a certain mellowness to an old whiskey. I've been the first to admit on many occasions that, I'm not ageist when it comes to whiskey. I really enjoy old whiskies, but I don't think that old whiskies are necessarily, the only option in terms of really, really good whiskies. Age is not everything, but age is a very good tool to making a good whiskey if it's used correctly. It smells like it's been used pretty correctly. So they do use a very, very, very lightly smoky malt spec, I believe, at Benromach. So there might be vague remnants of that after 40 years. Probably not. Not finding really any smoke on the nose. It's just... Yeah, that Seville orange is what really comes through. It's very orangey. All right. I have to admit, whilst it does smell delightful, I'm having a little bit of trouble putting words to the aromas right now. So I'm going to dive in for a sip and see if that opens it up a little for me in my head. See how it goes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It is. It tastes like a 40-year-old whiskey. Wow. Yeah. I'd almost forgotten what that tastes like. It's been a long time since I've had a really, really old whiskey like this. The last time I had a 40-year-old. Ooh. I can't even remember. I think it was a Tullibardine. Yeah, 1977 Tullibardine. Oh, very good. It's just, it's a real shame that 40-year-old whiskey is as expensive and as rare as it is. I mean, obviously it's a real shame that it's as expensive and rare it is, because it'd be lovely if everyone could have it. I mean, the fact that it's so exclusive does make it a little maybe more special, I guess. I mean, probably quite a lot. But I say that because it's such a beautiful, delicate, approachable style of whiskey. Like, if you were trying to get someone into whiskey who was a little unsure, they're not ready for a quarter cask or something. They need coaxing into it. Maybe they're coming to whiskey from a cognac background, or maybe even just a wine background. These are the kind of flavors. These are the best of the approachable flavors that you can get in whiskey. Like, you can get sherry bombs, and you can get peat bombs, and you can get whiskeys that are crazy tropical, and you can get whiskeys that are all kinds of cool, off-the-wall flavors in many directions. But if you boil whiskey down to its quintessential, like, flavor, whiskey-flavored whiskey, I guess, that sort of slightly tannic, vanilla, butterscotch flavor, old whiskey does it best. Like, there's no way around age for getting these particular flavors, and it's these flavors that I think are the most approachable in whiskey. So if 40-year-old whiskey was more readily available, I think there'd be more whiskey fans out there. Alas, that's never going to happen. That is special. It's almost difficult to pull apart the flavors of a whiskey like this, because after 40 years of maturing and marrying together in a cask, they're not separate flavors anymore. They've melded into each other. You don't have strands, you have a fabric now. It's not a ball of wool. It's a beautiful sweater. So deeply harmonious. The spirit has been tamed to such an extent. Like, the ABV is quite low on this. It's 43, but it's probably naturally only a touch higher than that, to be honest. So I don't feel like, oh, it's been watered down to oblivion. This is probably close to cask strength. But it feels full flavor. It absolutely does feel full flavor. If you were to give me this blind and tell me this is a cask strength 40-year-old, I believe it in an instant. It's just so soft. It's so regal. It's elegant, but structured. It's like a butterfly's wing. It's beautiful. It's perfectly engineered by nature to do its task, but it's oh so delicate. Butterfly wings would probably be what I would nickname this in the Dram Association. It's the right kind of imagery for a whiskey like this. I realize this probably doesn't make very good TV. I'm just really, really enjoying this whiskey. So, you also have a chance to enjoy this whiskey, because we got 3 bottles we've opened this one, and this is going to be this is going to be a very, very special whiskey for a few select individuals in a certain independent whiskey club here in Victoria who have actually purchased this bottle and are allowing me to use it for my review. So hopefully you noticed I didn't take very much. So thank you very, very much for the opportunity to try this whiskey myself, because under normal circumstances I generally wouldn't be able to. So for everyone involved in that club, a huge thank you, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. But for anyone else who's interested in trying this whiskey, we still have 2 bottles available. And the way that we're going to do this is we're actually going to do this as a lottery. Now, normally for a whiskey like this at the Strath, we just put it up for sale because, not everyone wants to come along and buy a 40-year-old whiskey. But honestly, the price that we have on this whiskey is so incredibly good for a 40-year-old official bottling Benromach that I already know of a good... I think I already can think of a good half a dozen people who want to buy this. So we are going to do it as a lottery. And the way that you do that, there'll be a link in the live chat and in the description of this video to be able to buy a ticket for $0. So you go to strathliquor.com and you can just search for Benromach, or you can click on the link to get there directly. And you'll be able to purchase for $0 a virtual ticket to be able to go into a draw for the chance to buy this whiskey. And you'll be able to buy this whiskey, hopefully, for those of you who are lucky enough to win the draw, you'll be able to buy this whiskey for $1,391.22. All in, after tax and deposit, that makes it $1,600, which makes this the cheapest 40-year-old single malt I have ever seen in my life. Yeah. So for those of you, maybe you're celebrating a 40th birthday or anniversary or something coming up and want to celebrate in real style, or maybe you need a crown jewel for your whiskey collection, or maybe you're particularly a big fan of Benromach as well. But for whatever reason that you would like to try and get your hands on this 40-year-old Benromach, please do enter the draw. We're going to keep the draw going for a week to try and make sure that as many people that want to be involved in the draw are able to be in it. So please do put yourself in. I'm doing it per person, and please don't abuse this. So if you have if for example, if you're a couple and you both want it, you can both put your name in. I'm not going to limit it to one or the other of a couple. But please don't ask every colleague that you in your office to put their name in the box for you and to try and rig the thing. I do expect a certain amount of decorum on the customer's part on this one. But good luck to all of you. And yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure to sample this frankly insane whiskey. Thank you once again, of course, to James from Authentic for bringing this in. Let's get the Glen Scotia in the shot as well, because whereas a select few people will be able to sample and try the Benromach 40. The Glen Scotia is a fantastic whiskey in its own right, and is also available right now, again, for $119.91 at strathliquor.com. So, yeah, here are our 2 most recent provincial exclusives, only available at the Strath here in British Columbia. Pick one up while you can. It's been an absolute delight. I will see you again on Sunday for our Indie Grain Showcase. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll see you in a couple of days. Slán Sivar. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Here's to whiskey kisses with the peachy taste of sin.